G'day, Starlo here. I've come down to my local beach this morning. I actually slipped out yesterday afternoon and caught about a dozen skinny little beach worms. Now, I am no Roger Osborne, I gotta tell you. I struggle to catch beach worms, but I managed to catch a few. They were pretty small ones, and I've come down this morning to see if I can catch a feed of fish on them. Maybe hanging around with Roger has rubbed off on me and I'm finally able to catch a few. I've done a couple of videos with Roger Osborne over the last year or so, and I'll put the links to those down below. They're well worth a look. He is an absolute guru, and I call him the worm whisperer. He is amazing at catching beach worms. I'm definitely not.
Over the last couple of years, I've put a lot of effort into creating a really detailed teaching on beach worms. I wrote a book on beach worming, and I also have a 19 video series which goes through every detail, and heaps of people are learning heaps. Well, they're catching beach worms now, which is fantastic. So if that's something you'd love to learn, head on over to my website, Roger's Fishing.
Anyway, hopefully I can catch a feed of something on these skinny little worms that I caught. And I also want to show you a couple of tips about casting that relate to mistakes that I see people making all the time. Now, I'm not going to say that you're going to make one of these mistakes, but maybe you will, or maybe you know someone that does, and you can help straighten out their casting. We're about an hour and a half before a big high tide this morning, so I'm going to have to be a little bit careful where I put my gear, because I reckon the water is going to come up over this bench on the beach. There's a little bit of ground swell there, not too much, but the water's going to come right up here, so I might put my gear a bit further back. All right, let's get into it. I'll pull one of my hard-earned worms out and rig it up. I'm running long-shanked hooks in conjunction with pieces of the worm burner plastic attractors that my son Tom makes. I feed a good length of worm onto the hook, then break off the excess, which I'll load onto this smaller long-shanked hook tied to a dropper above my running sinker. It's great having two baits out there. Okay, let's get the rig out into the surf, but not too far out. You'll notice I didn't make a very long cast. With the tide being so high, I've got deep water quite close in, so I figure there's no point firing it right out there. I'll just drop one in close and see if there's any fish sniffing around the edges. What a day. It's nice just being here on a beach like this early in the morning on a very warm day. It's going to be a stinking hot day, I think, but at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, it's still really nice. But there's a lot of heat in that sun already. No bites yet. There's a bit of debate about how to hold your rod when you're surf fishing like this. A lot of people fish with it up high, and there's some good reasons for that, for keeping your line up out of the breaking waves and the backwash. Because I use braid, which cuts through the water fairly well, I tend to keep my rod tip down nice and low and point it straight towards my rig. That way I reckon I can feel the bites better, and more importantly, I can react to them better by striking to set the hook. It can be a little bit hard to strike effectively when your rod is already up here somewhere. That baited rig's been sitting there for a couple of minutes now. It's not washing north or south very fast, so that's good. But what I'm going to start doing now is just very slowly retrieving it, bringing it in even closer, just in case the fish are right in on the edge. Also, having a moving bait can work quite well. I've really got my fingers crossed for some whiting this morning. I'd love some whiting to take home and eat, but I'll take whatever comes. So far though, it's pretty quiet, but that can change in an instant. One way that I like to keep a tight line and stay in touch with my rig when I'm beach fishing is just to walk back slowly rather than winding the reel. There's a couple of reasons for that. But the main one is that with a thread line or egg beater or spinning reel, whatever you want to call it, if you're winding it, you're chasing the line around with your finger because the rotor head takes the line around and wraps it onto the spool. It's very hard to keep running it over your finger. Whereas if you just pick it up with your finger and walk backwards, you're in perfect contact. That rotating rotor head is one of the few disadvantages of a spinning reel, and it's where a side cast is really good, because when you're turning a side cast reel, you don't have to chase the line around, you can keep it going over your finger the whole time. But I love my spinning reels, so it's a very small price to pay. Wow, that water's really starting to come up here onto the bench now. I call this bit the bench, where the beach comes up and then flattens out. There we go. Oh yes, first bites. And I've got a fish. It's no monster. Now I keep the rod up, use it as a shock absorber. I'd actually back that drag off a tiny bit. There we go. Oh, it's jumping, so it's a little salmon. It's not the whiting that I was hoping for. Chunky little salmon. My absolute favourite eating size for Australian salmon. So that one is coming home. I kill the fish immediately by brain spiking it with the point of my knife before cutting through the throat latch area and the gills to bleed it out thoroughly. Then I simply bury it in the damp sand beside my gear to keep it nice and cool. Perfect. Now, I promised you that I'd show you a couple of very common casting mistakes this morning as well. And I think one of them is how you hold the line when you cast with a spinning reel. There's a couple of different ways to trap the line when you open the bail arm. What I've always done is just pick it up here with my index finger and open the bail arm. Some people prefer to trap the line on the spool with their finger like that, which is probably technically more correct, but either way is fine, and it's worked for me for many years, just picking it up and holding it on my finger like that. But what I absolutely hate, and I see it all the time, is people who hold the line out here in their other hand away from the reel and then cast. It's fraught with danger because this bit of line between my hand and the reel has got to get back there and go out through the guides. It can end up going around the handle. It's just ungainly and unnecessary. So get into that habit of just picking it up neatly with your finger or trapping it on the spool. And then the second big one is what you do with your hands when you cast. And your hands, both of them on a double-handed rod, should stay on the rod through the whole cast. I see so many people do this. Let go with this hand and extend out with this arm. I don't know if they think they're going to get an extra metre of cast or whatever. But again, it's ugly, it doesn't help your accuracy. And also, when you've got the rod out there, if you've got fish slime on your hand or sunscreen or whatever, it's very easy to lose that rod, throw the whole thing into the surf. So just avoid those two simple casting mistakes and your casting will improve out of sight. All right, I better get it out there. Speaking of out of sight, I'm not going to try and cast out of sight. I'm going to make quite a short one. Watch what my hands do as I cast. The lower hand pulls the rod butt in towards me, while the upper hand pushes to accelerate the tip before releasing the line. Minimum effort, maximum result. It ain't rocket science. Getting a bite. Got him. Oh, that's a better fish. Maybe a little bit heavier. That's quite a bit heavier. This one might not be a salmon. Yeah, it's a salmon, a little bit bigger. Now, I didn't mean to sound disappointed. I'm perfectly happy to catch these small salmon, but I just would love a whiting or two. I do love eating my whiting, but I also like eating these little Australian salmon at this size. Ah, they're good fun. Oh, wow. Oh yeah, he's a fair bit bigger. I actually prefer to not keep them too much bigger than that. Give him a wash. Look at that. You can just see Tom's worm burner in there. Brain spike it and bleed it. Won't take long to get a feed together at this rate. I'll get my baits back in there as quickly as I can. Again, watch that casting motion. Pull down and in with the lower hand, up and over with the top hand, and keep both hands on the rod through the cast. Simple. Now it's just a matter of waiting for some action, and it shouldn't take too long. Yep, there's a bite, there's a bite, there's a bite. Come on, don't play with it. I'll walk back slowly and pull it away from him. Still just picking at it. Feels like a small fish. Surely he didn't get the bait. Not off two hooks with those couple of little bites. Just got another tiny bite. So there's obviously some bait left. A couple more little bites. And he grabbed it. Oh. When he decided to grab it, he didn't muck around. If I'd been reacting to those little bites, I would have kept pulling it away from him. So I just waited until he took it properly. Now this is a whiting. That's what I'm after. Don't think it's big enough. Got to be 27 centimetres here in New South Wales. It'd be big enough in Queensland, where they've only got to be 23, I think it is. Yeah, that one's about 25, maybe 26, but I'm going to put it back. Off you go. All right, there's some whiting out there. I'm happy. It pays to get your line back into the water as fast as you can when there's a few fish around. You never know how long they'll stay. The tide's just peaked now and begun to fall, so they could easily go off the bite, especially as the sun climbs higher in the sky. I'm keen to catch a couple more if I can before I head for home, and hopefully add a couple of legal whiting to the bag. The bite's already slowed, but it's not completely over. I'm on again. Doesn't feel like a whiting though. If it is, it's a beauty. No, that's got to be another salmon, the way it's fighting. They've got so much power, they just don't give up. It's definitely another keeper. Dinner's looking good. Well, the sea breeze has kicked in now and it's not quite as nice as it was, and also the fish don't seem to be biting all that frantically, so I'm actually going to head home, process those little salmon that I kept for dinner tonight and give my gear a wash down. Look, I hope I've been able to get that idea across to you. Don't cast holding the line out there. Get some control over it, have it here on your finger or pin it to the spool, and keep both hands on the rod through the cast with a double-handed outfit. You'll be a lot more accurate, you'll get better distance, you won't drop your outfit, and you won't look like a complete goober. There are a couple of fairly common problems that I see amongst fishermen. They're by no means the biggest issue that I see. I actually did a whole episode about that, and I'll put the link to it up here and also down below in the comments. Fishing's biggest problem or biggest mistake. Well worth having a look at that one. If you have enjoyed this, please just take a moment to click that little thumbs up symbol down below and give me a like. And if you don't already subscribe to the channel, I wish you would. Okay, until next time, this is Starlo wishing you tight lines.